All right. So I wanted to bring up an energy bill for you guys to have a look at and jump in. I'd like some participation. So this is a residential bill. I'm going to show you a commercial one in a minute. So it's a residential bill. And, you know, on the phone you can only get so much information, but it's important that you're asking the right information. Okay? So an appointment was made. I received this energy bill. That's where it's come from. So have a look at that. Total due on this bill, 0. Right? You've got your account number. You've got the street address. We can quickly look that up and have a look at the house and make sure it looks pretty decent. But they got solar. All right? We know they've got solar. So, understanding my bill. When we go down here, previous amount was 163. They're making credit payments of like $50. I'd imagine they're on kind of like a weekly payment plan or something like that. Brought forward, there's a balance of $213 in credit. So that's nothing to do with the current supply. It's to do with the balance. New charges. 421 kilowatt hours in 1 month between May and June, or for the whole of May. Basically, they're on a flat rate, tariff 11. They've got another tariff here, which is controlled supply. I'm not quite sure what that is. 31 days, so they're paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour here. And for this controlled supply, they're paying 19 cents. So this could be off-peak, shoulder rate, just whatever is contracted by the energy company, which in this case is Ergon Energy Retail. So in Queensland, you've got, so Ergon does the poles and wires like Energex in Queensland. That's the electricity company that manage the poles and wires. That's not a retailer, although Ergon has a retail side of their business. You've got down here new credits, which is a solar export. And so they exported 366 kilowatt hours. Now, even if you're doing commercial, this is still valid, because if you come across a business that has or hasn't got solar, you need to be kind of aware of these things. So solar export, right? They're exporting 366 kilowatt hours in the same month, and they're using 421 kilowatts. And so they have a credit. It looks like the rate is about 12 cents a kilowatt hour, which seems high. If I'm reading that correctly, it seems very high considering the average is about 4 cents for feed-in. Anyway, it's given them a $45 credit for that month onto the bill. So you could look at this bill and say the balance of the bill, oh, you're in credit. Well, technically, that's because they make their payments at $50 a week, so they may actually end up getting ahead of their bill. So that credit is the balance of the bill. The new charges are what's really interesting, right? So it's not that these guys have a credit of $71.99, although they do, but they don't have a credit for this month. They still have a bill of $187 for this month, minus their solar credits. So what is their real bill this month? Anyone? Jump in. Just want to make sure you're following it. Anyone? What's their actual bill for the month? Nothing to do with previous credits and payment plans and things like that, but what did their energy actually cost them this month for a month residentially? Anyone?
187.15.
Minus
The 45. 25, so that's $142
Something like
per
that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So their energy is actually costing them still 140 odd dollars per month times 3, right, is what's that? 140, it's like $420 a quarter. So it's still decent. And remember, our minimum spend is around $300 per quarter or more. So these guys have solar and they're still spending. So as a reflex, what's the solution for these guys at this point? Anything run through your mind? Or what questions do you need to ask them?
You could ask them how long they've had the solar on the roof for.
Yep,
Because if it's an older system, that could explain why they're still getting a pretty high bill.
yep. Could ask them how much solar as well they've got. What size system is it? Now, the notes on this one were quite interesting. And this was from the customer as well. Is that they felt like they were unsure about whether they needed more panels because they've still got this bill. So their impression was solar was going to kill this bill. Do they need more panels? Anyone? Sarge, you there?
Yeah, maybe a battery. Maybe could help
Why?
using the energy at night.
Yeah. What's an obvious reason? That's good. That's actually the potential solution here, right? It's a battery. What leads you to that? Anyone? What leads you to the thought that maybe they need a battery?
Because obviously the solar panels aren't, they're not sufficient enough for their energy needs.
Aren't they?
Yeah, because they're still paying a bill, right? So they're
Yeah.
using more energy. Yeah.
But let me put it another way. If you've got an export, what does that mean if you've got an export? Anyone? Okay, let me give you a tip. If you're exporting, you're making more energy than you use, right? So the only reason you would export at 4 cents, or in this case 12 cents, rather than use it, have a look, how much are they paying for using energy? What's their kilowatt rate per kilowatt hour there, guys?
31.
Yeah, basically 30.9 cents a kilowatt hour. And they're making extra energy during the day and exporting it nearly the same amount as their bill. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right? 421 kilowatt hours of what they used that month. They're making 366 and they're giving it away for 12 cents. Can you see that? Why do you think they're doing that?
To try and save on their bill.
No, because they're not storing. They're not storing their energy, right? So, have they got enough solar panels? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Why? What shows you that?
Because they're making more than, but they're not storing it like
Correct.
which is why battery would be, perfect solution.
Correct. So if they just went off and they went in and added more solar panels like people have done in the past, what would happen?
excess.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly, Vihan. So they would be exporting even more at 12 cents. But look at the low-hanging fruit for them as a family. Hey, we've still got this 30 cents we're paying, and we're generating 421 kilowatt hours at 30 cents. Surely we would be better off using that exported energy rather than giving it away for 12 cents or 4 cents, as the actual market rate is usually. Why would I give it away when I could store it up in a battery and use it later on? So what that tells you is they're obviously not using that energy during the day. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any solar left to export. So that tells you, when are they using their energy? At night, right? You see how important the energy bill is. So these people could have gone down the road, oh, I need more panels, because that's what they said. Oh, I thought I needed more panels. And I've written back to the guy, because I've questioned him. I said, why are you interested? So I've gone, one of the guys has made this yesterday, and I could see there was something a bit odd. And so I've gone back to him and I said, what's the situation with this? Because you're in credit. You're not happy with where you are. Why are you interested in the appointment? Because we're not really doing battery only appointments, right? Well, unless there's a real need. And if we are doing a battery only appointment, we're going to do it by telephone. We're not going to do it by someone coming out to actually go and see them at this point, right? Especially for this Queensland one. So this is potentially a very good telephone appointment, but it was set up as a physical visit, which is why I got involved, right? So I got involved because it's a physical visit, and I just didn't think it stood up to a physical visit. But he sent his energy bill in going, I think I need more panels. And I've had a look at his bill and gone, you know what? You are already exporting nearly as much as you need to use as a household. You are giving away for 12 cents at the moment, and that will drop down to about 4 cents. So your credit is insignificant compared to your energy bill, right? You should be storing that energy in a battery, and you should be using it to cut down your 30 cent per kilowatt hour cost, right? So if you stored 366, right? So we're talking about 41.54 minus 366.61 equals 53.91 is actually what they should be using in their electricity, times 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay, is about $16. So their energy bill should be $16, right? So we can't really do anything about the service fee, but that's $3, so that's not very much, $1.16. Morning, guys. We've had a couple of guys join us this morning. You're lucky I'm recording this one. You miss all the good stuff. So the good stuff happens between 9 o'clock and about 1:15. But anyway, back to the energy bill. So the meaning of this bill means if they had a battery, their bill would go down from $187, right, to $16. $187 to $16. Okay, so they should be saving $171 by having a battery, right? Does that make sense so far to you guys? You following that? Now, how much does a battery cost? All right, so approximately they're going to need, so you have a look at their daily, their electricity usage. They're using 13 kilowatts per day, right? So very roughly, right, let's say a 10 kilowatt battery does the job for what they need because they're offsetting their energy Their electricity usage, 13 kilowatts. Okay, that'll be their nighttime usage. So let's get them a 13 kilowatt battery. So their 13 kilowatt battery, right, is approximately $13,000 because batteries cost around about $1,000 a kilowatt, right? So does solar, plus profit, and depends on the individual company. But solar is priced at about $1,000 cost to install. Everything to install is about $1,000 per kilowatt. All right, batteries the same, although the installation is far less, so you can discount a bit. So that should be about $13,000. And at the moment, they're getting $3,000 to $5,000. So let's say they got $5,000 back for that. All right, so it's about 35%. Their battery cost now comes down to $8,000. And they might get a discount or whatever, but even if they pay $8,000, right? So the $8,000 is the battery cost, but it's going to save them $171 a month by 12 months. Okay, it's going to save them $2,000 a year. And the battery is going to cost them $8,000. So what is the return on investment in years for this customer? Anyone? They're going to save $2,000 a year. The battery is now going to cost them after the rebate $8,000.
So in 4 years I'll have a battery.
4-year return on investment. Exactly. And this is how it's sold. This is how solar is sold. It's a 4-year return on investment. Do a payment plan. You know, do a payment plan of 8,000. Okay, forget the interest for now, but divided by 48 months is $166 per month. How much were they saving per month? Anyone?
171.
Correct. And what's their repayments now?
160, so it's saving like $10 a month.
But they're paying that only for 4 years, and then what happens? There's no more payment, right? They're ahead. So this is what a bill swap is called in solar, where if you can afford your energy bill, you can afford solar and batteries. But it is only viable if it's viable, right? And we can't always predetermine this from a phone call. This is why you need to ask questions. This is why you need an energy bill. To do a really good job, to get a good quality appointment, this is really, really vital that you understand this. It is a no-brainer, right? If you can do some of this work on the phone, it is a no-brainer, right? If you can get a conversation with these guys, rather than just going, hey, do you want a solar quote? Right? If you can discuss part of what I just showed you, is that not a better conversation, right? High quality conversation, right? Now, sometimes we can't just do it on one call. Sometimes it's going to be when the energy bill comes in. And yes, it's mostly a job for the salesperson, but I just wanted you to understand what you're looking for out there. If you're going to set up a battery appointment, why? Why are you going to set up a battery appointment, right? Do you have an idea of why? Hey, how much is your current energy bill? Oh, we're paying about $200. Right, and you've got solar at the moment. Okay, all right. Are you exporting? Are you getting a credit every month? Right? How much credit are you getting per month? All right. The fact that you have a credit means what? Anyone? Sarge said it before. Sorry, Vihan?
Excess.
Which means they've got enough panels. Means the solar's doing its job, right? If you've got an excess, the solar's doing its job. You're just not using it. If you still have a bill, you're just not using it, right? It means if you're not using the daytime use, that's what it means. It means you're using it at night. And if you're using it at night, what's a solution for that?
battery.
At what point? At which point? How much would your energy bill still need to be to justify a battery?
$300.
Over 300 a month.
Correct.
Per quarter, sorry.
Per quarter. And these guys are bang on, right? These guys are basically 187. You can't use the credit because your credit will be used in the solar, right? It'll be stored in the battery, so you can't count the credit because they won't have a credit because they'll be using their energy. Now, what would happen if their energy bill was more like $500 a month? Do they have enough solar export to kill that bill?
No, they wouldn't.
So what would they need?
They'd probably need more panels.
Correct. That's solar right there in a nutshell. And that's what the assessment does, right? And that's what the consultant does when they go out. They look at the bill, they work out what do they need? What do we need? Do we need more panels? Do we not need more panels? If you've already got an export and you're exporting X amount, then you're probably okay, but you might need a few more panels. Or if you've got an old solar system, and actually, if it's 8 or 10 years older, you might be even better off just changing the whole thing over and doing it with a battery, because you get a battery free at the moment in some installations. You might just be better off doing the whole thing from scratch and then reselling your solar system, because your solar system is working. There's no issue with that. It works, right? So your panels are good for another 10, 15 years. So you might take off the old solar system, get it stacked next to the house on a pallet, and then sell some panels off to people with camper vans or houseboats or boats or whatever. Or you can recycle it, or you can, someone will come along and buy it off you. Potentially, but then they do something that's not terribly environmentally friendly, or it isn't, but they might ship it off to Africa, or they might ship it off to Asia to use in schools and different things. But you've got to go with a credible company that does that, because you want to make sure these are tested for fire and things like that. But so that's it, guys. I just wanted to really give you a little bit more of an idea. This applies to commercial as well, right? You doing commercial, right? They have a particular energy bill. They have a daytime use. Some of them might have a nighttime use. It comes down to the figures of whether a solar and battery is viable. If you can discuss some of this, you don't have to discuss all of it, but you can justify your position to say, well, let me explain what we look at. We look at things like feed-in tariffs. We look at things like peak and off-peak rates, and then do a design up of the solar and batteries to see how much of either that you need. And once we know how much you need, we can then go ahead and do a design up and find out what your rebates are likely to be. But you can only do that once you go down the road of the design, because the rebate is closely tied to how many megawatt hours of energy your system's going to generate. And that's the credit that the government gives you. And as I've just demonstrated, you can make it so that it doesn't cost them anything more than what they're already spending, right? So a battery for this guy will cost inside of what he's already spending. And he doesn't realize, and no one's explained it to him. Now, this guy's got solar. He has already under the impression that there's nothing more he can do because he can't add more panels, right? And I'm going to get this guy into a phone appointment because I'm going to explain exactly what I just explained to you. No, you don't need any more panels because you're creating an excess. Right? But what you do need is a battery to store that excess, because you're better off getting, cutting out your 30 cent per kilowatt hour energy use in the evening rather than claiming 12 cents or 4 cents feed-in tariff, right? That makes perfect sense, right? Why would you give your energy away and sell it for 4 cents to 12 cents when you should be using it yourself to cover your 30 cent per kilowatt hour use, right? It's just basic maths. Right? You need to find out what a battery's going to look like for you. Let's book an appointment. Okay, so